Welcome to the Japan on Film podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and we're back with a new season and also a brand new guest. So I'd like to introduce our new guest coming to the show for the first time, the Artie Dans of the Asian Movie Fans podcast show, I believe it was called.
Asian Film Fans, just a
Asian
website. Unfortunately, no podcast just as yet. I don't know if I don't have the voice for a podcast. I've got the head for radio though.
Yeah, don't we all?
You got to embrace it.
Yes, that's what I figured I had to do when the quarantine started and I had to go months without a haircut. I finally got sick of it. And I said, let's just get rid of it. And everyone said they liked it, so I decided to keep it.
It's a great look. It really is. Don't listen to what anyone says about hair. It's overrated. Completely overrated. Yeah.
So anyway, how are you doing?
Good. Where I am here in Melbourne, we got put under a snap 5-day COVID lockdown because the fabulous UK strain got released here. So today is day 4. We have got 1 day left of this lockdown, and then hopefully we're back to normal. Because I'm looking forward to going back to the cinema to catch one of the latest Chinese New Year movies. So with any luck, that happens. I've just aged this production now by saying that it's around Chinese New Year time. So.
That's no problem. People who've been listening to the show, they probably think they know. For any new listeners we got in, I end up recording these interviews in batches, like about a few months in advance. So you're listening to this in the future for us. It's probably like late spring where you are, but it's February for us here right now. But anyway, welcome to the show. I'm glad to welcome you in. We had a chance to talk a little bit amongst ourselves before we started recording. But I'd like you to kind of introduce yourself to my audience, let them know a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in Asian movies in general, and then more specifically Japanese movies, since we're talking about Japanese movies on this podcast.
Thanks, Perry. Well, I'm 40 years old now, living in Australia. I was a movie buff when I was in high school, and I discovered Asian cinema probably when I was about 16. We have a TV channel here in Australia called SBS, which deals in a lot of foreign programming, and they showed a lot of Jackie Chan movies. So Saturday nights we'd watch it, and whoa, what was that? Sorry, something fell over. Saturday nights we'd watch it, and then go to school Monday and talk about this awesome Jackie Chan film. Then I got into video rentals and found that there was a Jackie Chan movie called City Hunter, which was like Street Fighter, but in film form, where he dresses up as Chun-Li and Blanca. Japanese movies came not too long after, when I was looking for more horrors to watch. And then this word of this movie called The Ring was floating around, and you have to see it, Dan. So Dan went and watched it and remembered being petrified I was probably about 18 watching this film. Then got heavy into stuff like Silent Hill, the game Silent Hill, and Resident Evil on the PlayStation. So my love of this Japanese horror started that way. Japanese cinema was probably was second after Hong Kong cinema, but Japanese I think tended to take a little bit more interest because of the wackiness that was involved. The Tak Sakaguchi stuff is just insane. And I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy that directed Toilet of the Dead, Nobuo Iguchi, just some insane movies. So I got stuck watching those, not stuck watching, into watching.
Yeah, Nobuo Iguchi. I remember that name. He's done a lot of other stuff as well.
Works
right. He directed The Machine Girl. That was what I know him from.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of stuff with Asami, who I'm absolutely in love with. I think she's adorable. But then unfortunately, I got a Chinese partner, and then I got very heavy into Chinese cinema. So anyone who's looked at the content on my channel, the Artie Dans, will notice I do a lot of Chinese horror movies, but mostly because they're just terrible to watch, and I like to just pick them apart. But when I get the chance, I love to just settle into a good Japanese horror. Unfortunately, it's been pretty rubbish this year. The Howling Village was just awful. Don't know what was the idea behind that. But a movie about, well, actually not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, but the ending was just shocking. So I'm hoping that 2021 gets us some better stuff. But I remember sitting down on the computer one day, and I was at a streaming site, and I saw this movie called One Cut of the Dead.
Yes.
I thought, I know nothing about this film. I'm going to watch it. And I remember about 20 minutes in, I said to myself, Dan, they haven't cut the camera once yet. And that's when I realized, I think alongside most other people, that I was probably watching one of the most brilliant horror movies ever made, modern horror movies ever made. And then when that first 35 minutes of that one cut was over, I just, well, where do you go from that? And then it's cool that they give you the whole backstory about what happened, but what a great movie. So for me, if someone ever says Japanese horror movies, I will without a doubt just say One Cut of the Dead. Go watch it. And then once you've watched that, go watch some other stuff. But
yeah, we covered that on here with John Adam of V Cinema back in season 4. So we talked about that. That was a really unique movie. It was definitely not what I expected. I remember it was one of my coworkers had told me, "Oh, you should," and he didn't tell me anything else. He just said, "Oh, just watch this movie." And
perfect.
Then we were at my girlfriend, my wife. We were in the video store, which those still exist here in Japan.
Lucky.
And it was there. It was on display there. So we decided to rent it and we watched it. And it gets to like the end of the first 40 minutes or so, I think, and then the credits start rolling, and I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh, that was a quick that movie seemed to go by really fast. And then I look at my watch, and I'm like, wait, the reason it went by really fast is because it did. It's only like 20, 30 minutes into the movie. What's going on here? And I saw on the progress bar on my TV that there's still like, all this time left. I'm like, what? And so I'm like, okay. And I told my wife, I'm like, there's still more to this? And she's like, I guess so. So we just kept on watching and see what happened next.
It's brilliant. It is brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Japanese cinema, I think. Now, I'm not Takashi Miike's greatest fan. So it was with some trepidation that I did approach Like a Dragon. I don't find him overhyped. Like, he's not overhyped. He's a great director. It's just his style doesn't gel that well with me. And I did watch, I think it's First Love that came out last year. And I think I must be one of the only people who didn't like it.
I haven't seen that yet, so I can't comment on that. But I've been meaning to. That's on my list of something to check out eventually. The most recent movie of his I've seen, I think, was Yakuza Apocalypse, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was his most recent movie I've seen. So I'm either that or Blade of the Immortal. One of those two was the most recent movies of his I saw. Yeah, he directed Yakuza Apocalypse and Blade of the Immortal.
Okay. Well, as I said, not a big Miike fan, so I don't know much about those ones. But Yakuza Apocalypse, I'd be keen to watch. I think
that was interesting. It's like a vampire Yakuza movie. So
bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah,
bring it on for sure.
Well, he's got Miike's, and like I'm a Miike fan. He's one of the reasons I got into Japanese cinema in the first place. I still remember, I've told this story many times, but when I watched Audition for the first time, it was my freshman year in university. I was staying up on the campus one night, decided to just have a night in, order a pizza, and this is when we still had video stores back in the Stone Age in America. And so I was at the nearby Blockbuster, which does exist outside of Captain Marvel. It's not just something they invented for that. And I'm in the Blockbuster and I'm looking on the new release walls, and there's this Japanese movie called Audition. I look at the back, and it just sounds like the dumbest premise ever, right? And just like, a horror movie about a guy who auditions for his wife and she ends up being a psychopath. It sounded just really cheesy. And I'm like, well, this is probably going to be fun for a few laughs. So I decided to rent it, thinking it was just going to be a bad B horror movie. And then end up getting the shit scared out of me while I was watching it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was like a year or two later, someone I know, they said, "Oh, you liked Audition, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, the director, he's got another movie that's coming out that's playing at a theater in Chicago where I was living, and called Gozu." And so she sent me the information. I went to go see Gozu in the theater, which was just totally fucked up and just it just ridiculously over the top, crazy movie. At the end of my class every year, I give my students a list of recommended movies to watch, and I give a little write-up about it and about like why you should watch it. And for Gozu, I ended it saying like, I'm like, this will be the strangest movie you ever watch, probably.
Help me out here. There's a Japanese movie I'm trying to remember the title of about a guy who kidnaps two people who are on their first date, and then he brings them back to his lair house and kind of straps them up and gets them to do really weird things to each other. He strips them off. He forces them to have sex with each other. And then he starts like cutting their ears, cutting parts of the skin. What?
I haven't seen it, but I have heard of this because it does sound very familiar. I haven't seen it because I don't remember seeing that movie, but I don't know. I can't recall the name of it. I do remember hearing about it though. It sounds very familiar.
Oh, so I get that confused with Audition all the time.
Oh, okay.
And every time someone talks about Audition, I keep wanting to talk about this movie. And then they say it's about a guy looking for his wife. I'm like, no, shut up, Dan. It's not that movie. It's a different movie. But Like a Dragon, as I was telling you before, the only reason I watched the film was because I was making a video about game to movie adaptations. And I managed to find a copy of it. Not the best source. I think you know what I'm talking about, but I found a copy of it and I thought, well, I love the Yakuza games. Behind me on that side is probably every game in the series except for the new one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I love it. So I was hoping for that in a movie form. I think what I got was part 2, which I believe it is. It's based on part 2, the game.
Are you talking about because there is a Yakuza 0 game, which that's the
prequel.
That's the prequel one, yeah. But I think this one is, unless I'm mistaken, this is based on part 1 because I'm in the middle of playing Kiwami right now, the like PS3 remake of it, and the story is very similar to that. I'm not sure. I haven't played part 2 though, so I can't comment exactly. But
it feels like part 2 with the dog and the looking for Haruka's mother.
That was in part 1. That's in.
Oh my god, I'm getting so confused. See, this is age. This is what age does to you.
Oh god.
Yeah, because 1 was set in Kamurocho, which is the game's version of Kabukicho, which is this infamous red light district in Tokyo. And 2, and each one of the games, I believe, was set in a different location. So,
so 3 goes to Okinawa.
3 goes to Okinawa, yeah, and
5 covers.
It looks like 2 is also is in the same location. Oh, and the first half is in the same location, then the other half is in Osaka. In the second game.
I'm getting confused. Yeah, good one, Dan. Well, I was hoping for. To see a lot of the familiarities. And I think there is. When you watch the movie, a lot of the familiarities are there. You get the Popple convenience store, you get the batting center, you get the theater square, you get a version of Don Quixote's. It's not Don Quixote. I don't think they got the license to say the name.
Yeah, they probably didn't have the permission to use that.
There's Stardust is in there, where the guys who run the male host club are there. So that was good to see some of that stuff. I remember being disappointed because there's no game arcade in it, and I was hoping to see Kiryu go to the game arcade.
Also not really. There's also no interaction with the hostess girls or anything like that. Like
that's true.
In the game.
It's true. There's only one Sega logo, which was another thing that really got me, and that was in the batting center. The camera pans up to the top of a vending machine, and there's a can with the word Sega written on it. I'll see if I can find it later, and I'll show you. I remember being just a little bit disappointed. That was the only real reference to Sega. And there was no restaurants. I was really hoping to see them sitting in a restaurant.
Yeah, there is
great food porn.
Yes, yeah. There is the couple. They rob a restaurant, but that's like the only thing we get.
That's true. Yeah. So the couple throws me out. Like,
yeah, I felt the same thing watching the movie, that it just, their story just seemed like completely useless. It didn't it had no real connection to the rest of the what else was going on in the movie.
No, it was just there to kind of break up the bits between Goro and Kiryu. Yeah. And then watching the girl get progressively crazier as the night gets on. as they rob more and more places. Sorry about the spoilers, everyone.
Well, I think if you're listening to the show, I think by now you're used to the fact that we spoiled the movies in this. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Because I get feedback on my videos, Dan, you've spoiled the ending, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, did I? So yeah, don't want to do that for this one. But yeah, you know what my biggest problem with the movie was?
What's that?
Goro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because in the game he's got the high-pitched voice.
Yeah, the voice was
distinct.
Yeah, the voice did throw me off a little bit because like I mentioned, I'm playing the Kiwami games and I'm always used to his like high-pitched voice coming out of nowhere in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
But I think that aside, I did really like the actor who played him. Like the voice aside, I thought he did a really good job. I really thought he kind of captured the kind of manic energy and intensity of Majima.
Yeah, and he's got a couple of his signature moves there. At least he's got his baseball bat as well,
yes,
which I did like. But yeah, the voice really threw me out. I wish my camera would focus. The voice really threw me out. Now, don't take this. I'm not as a negative to the movie, but I feel at times all the actors feel B grade. Yeah,
I mean, like this is because I've seen this movie twice now. I watched it when I first got it, maybe like a year or so ago, and then and I watched it again last night in preparation for this. And I think as a video game adaptation, as an adaptation of the Yakuza game, it's better than I would expect from a movie like this. Because usually these types of adaptations, they tend to be pretty bad. This one had it captured a lot of especially the opening, the opening bits of it. Like the first half of the movie or so is, I think, really well done, aside from the weird couple that's going around robbing things. But like the whole idea of like, people just attacking him out of the middle of nowhere in the streets of Tokyo, which does not happen, right?
I was hoping it didn't happen. Yeah.
You don't just have random Yakuza, fist fights and gun battles break out of the middle of a shopping district. It does not happen at all. But the way they portrayed it in this movie, it very much feels like it happens in the game. So I thought that was really good. I really thought they did that well. And I thought Kazuki Kitamura, who plays Kazuma, I thought he did a really good job too. Also Natsuo, who plays Haruka, and as I mentioned, Goro Kishitani, who plays Majima. All of them, I thought they did a really good job, and I thought they really they feel like they stepped right out of the game.
So for anyone just watching the stream right now, I've covered my head with some screenshots of the movie just so you can get an idea of what Perry and I are talking about. On the screen right now, unfortunately, Perry, I know you can't see it, is just the guy who's playing Kiryu when he's finished off the last punch at the Don Quixotes against the gangsters at the start.
Yes, and his fist has the signature, the blue fire from like in the game. So
it's just the bit I'm showing now just has a glint, but yeah, it does do that. So yeah, it's that part of the game made it, or part of the movie did make it feel very authentic. And certainly the location, I love the outdoor Kamurocho, Kabukicho setting, because I've seen some movies recently. We were talking about Donnie Yen before, and Enter the Fat Dragon, that's set in Kamuro or Kabukicho as well, but it was filmed on an indoor set. And you can tell it's been filmed indoors, whereas this one's clearly been 2-3 o'clock at night once everyone's cleared out. They've managed to get a permit for those witching hours, and they've gone and shot the movie in those particular scenes, and that sense of authenticity looks great. One question for you though: at the start, you see the gate to welcome people, and I'll see if I can bring it up in the video here. Does that say, if you can remember off the top of your head, does that say what it says in real life, or does it copy what it says in the game?
I'm not sure because I can't. Oh no, I see it right here.
Trying to find it here as well, just so that anyone watching the stream can just know what we're talking about. There it is. Oh, I found it. It's at the 32-second mark. I'm wondering whether they digitally altered that sign or whether they that's original.
I'm not sure because they do have. I'm on the Wikipedia page, and they do have a shot of the entrance. I'm not sure if this is from the game or from if it's from the movie or if it's actually just a shot of the actual location.
Oh yeah.
Because in the movie it is Kabukicho. In the Wikipedia page I'm seeing here, this is in Kabukicho. So let me let me do it this way. I will open up the video here, and you can have a look and see if this is the same thing you're seeing on your screen.
Okay. Yep. It's to say this will be a real test of technology.
Yeah.
We hope we can do it.
So let me just change over here to. So is this what you're seeing on your screen too?
No, it is modified.
Okay, so then so this is Kabukicho. This is the real screen. This is really what it looks like outside there. So obviously they did modify it for the movie then, which would make sense.
So anyone watching the stream can see the comparison.
Yeah.
The character for Future, I know it in Chinese. I just don't know it in Japanese. Is within the game world sign. So yeah. So that means then they've really tried to keep it as authentic as possible. And I like that approach. I think that's pretty awesome. Is there a real convenience store chain called Popo, or is that a game thing?
I don't know. It might be because there are some like the big chain convenience stores. There are three big chains. There's Family Mart, there's Lawson, and there's 7-Eleven. Those are the big three big chains, and there are smaller ones too, and some of them are location specific.
Yeah.
And also there used to be a lot more. So back when the game was made, I mean, the original game came out in
PS2
2005. Yeah, 2005 is when the original game came out. So I don't know if that even in the one they use in the game, I'm not sure if that's a real convenience store chain because they do use real stores in the game. Like we were talking before we started recording that excuse me, Don Quixote is a big chain of stores in Japan, and they use that in the game. They don't use it in the movie though.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I was hoping to hear the song. I love that Don Quixote theme.
And that's the exact same song. You go to the Don Quixote in Japan, you go to the stores, they play that exact same song.
Yeah, I remember embarrassing my friend when we walked into it singing the song. I was quickly disowned in that store, and I think the one in that's featured in that area is the 4 or 5 level 1. It's not the one with the AKB theater, because that's in Akihabara, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I don't know a whole lot about Tokyo. I've never been to Akihabara or Kabukicho either. So I've been to Shinjuku. I've been to Ginza and a few other locations that the neighborhoods or names are escaping me right now. But I've never been to either Akihabara or Kabukicho though.
Oh, so you haven't been to the place that's in the movie?
No.
Ah, okay. Well, I've got one up on you there, I think.
Yeah.
I think I've been there a couple times. I think the last time we were there was, I remember Scarlett Johansson was actually on stage in the middle of Theatre Square. What was she promoting? I think it was Ghost in the Shell. Was out at that time. And the big, there was a Godzilla standing.
Yeah. I've been to that
building.
Yeah, I've been to that. I've been to the Godzilla statue.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
But speaking of locations or from the movie, some of the interiors towards the end, I think it's supposed to be set in one of the
Millennium Tower.
The Millennium Tower. I'm thinking of the bit where Goro is fighting all those guys with Kiryu, where he's fighting Kiryu. I think it's because they say to him, "Why are you bringing Haruka in here?"
Oh yeah, it's a bathhouse. That's
a bathhouse. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That feels like a set to me. Clearly, that feels like a set. It doesn't feel like that's shot on any location.
No, that would have to be a set. There's no way a bathhouse would allow a film crew to come in and shoot. Because the whole thing about those places is they skirt the law, right?
Yeah.
Because the prostitution law in Japan says that vaginal penetration is constitutes prostitution is illegal.
Okay.
Anything else is legal. So at
anything
these places,
else is legal.
Yeah. So these places, they skirt the law, but they say that, you know, you're coming in here for a massage or whatever, and that anything that happens between you and the worker after the masseuse afterwards is a separate arrangement between you two. So
kind of a whoops, we didn't know thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of that in the Japanese legal system.
You know what? When there's a law, there's a loophole.
Yeah.
And you know, trust the Yakuza to find those loopholes too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I still can't get over the actor who plays Kiryu. Like, it just, I wanted someone a bit, how do I say this without sounding very homoerotic? I wanted someone a bit more manly.
Oh, okay.
Like, Kiryu's a big guy in the game, and he's awesome. And you know, when the game starts up and you get to control Kiryu, you're really, you know this guy's a real badass. I don't get it with the actor that plays him in it.
No, he's definitely not as physically big as Kiryu is in the game, but he's also he is still pretty built, I think. Like he's got the whole square jaw thing going for him, and whereas you know, a lot of other actors you might see going up for a role like this, they're much slimmer, have much more angular features, where he's very much, you know, he's a bit more boxy, and he was also in the Kill Bill movies. He played he was the crazy 88 guy.
Not very familiar with that one, unfortunately.
Okay.
But yeah, I am watching that back, and he does have a very, very squarish face.
That was one thing.
Watching.
Yeah, that was one of the things that jumped out to me so much so that when I was watching with my wife, I'm like, he's got a really square face.
I do like that his costume's authentic.
Yes.
I do like that they've got his correct suit. I think he smokes in the movie.
I think not a whole lot. I think maybe at like one point or something. But I don't remember a whole lot of smoking going on from him.
No, which is quite good and quite unusual for Japan. Quite unusual for Asia, full stop. It's great to not see people smoking, to be honest.
Well, there aren't more modern movies. Because I remember even when Miyazaki, when Studio Ghibli, they released their The Wind Rises film, it got a lot of criticism for all the smoking in it.
Ooh.
And even within the country too. So I think in the movies they've cut back a lot in it, I think, especially for bigger budget movies. And with that in mind too, like that's one of the things that impressed me about this is that the movie doesn't look cheap, right? It does have they for a Japanese movie anyway.
Okay. Yeah, because
gotta clarify that for a Japanese movie, yeah.
Yeah, the overall vibe really does give off, and especially considering it's a Miike film, it does give off a really strange shot on video type feeling. Whether that's just a really clean picture that's used throughout it, you know, there doesn't seem to be any grain or noise, and clearly 2007, you'd be looking at early digital cameras if they did shoot on digital. Can't see them shooting that on film, so yeah, it does have a very clean, almost soap opera kind of feel. And then, you know, you play the game, it's in 60 frames a second. So you're probably kind of used to that very clean look. I just wanted to give you a bit of trivia. Have you ever watched an Indian movie? Any Indian movies?
Not really, no.
We were watching one a couple months ago because we were comparing it to a Chinese movie that was remade of it. And the scenes of smoking, there's a little pop-up that comes down the bottom of the screen that tells you about the dangers of smoking. And it lasts the entire time the person is smoking on the screen.
Oh my God.
And so I asked an Indian friend of mine, is this common? He goes, yeah, it's just part of the government kind of thing to help people, you know, to tell you the dangers of smoking. And I'm thinking, oh my God, if a Japanese movie did that, that pop-up would be there virtually the whole screen for some movies.
Yeah. But one of the things I did think was interesting. So like I mentioned, as an adaptation of the game, I was more or less satisfied with a lot of it. A lot of video game movie adaptations of video games are not very well done, and I thought this one, it had it. I at least felt like the people involved in this movie, like they had actually played the game.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other video game adaptations, you don't get that sense that they actually played the game, right?
And
especially if you look at some of the American video game adaptations.
Well, American adaptations of Japanese games, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's another potential issue with the movies. And unless you are a game fan, unless you do like the game, I think there are parts of the movie that you get really left behind.
Yeah.
So when we see Haruka's mother at the end, it's this I remember when I first saw it, it was about 20 seconds and that's it.
Yeah.
But for someone who's played the game, you know that the bits that are cut out from the movie, there's a lot more about her mother there that you're finding out throughout the whole movie.
Right.
And yeah, to just see her for 20 seconds at the end, you just think, well, okay, if I didn't know who she was. And same with the gun store, the guy where they buy their illegal guns.
Right. Yeah.
Again, if you don't know who he is, his appearance in the movie is just kind of, you just have to accept it.
Yeah.
Detective Date is another one. He's not really explained too well, other than just being this great badass kind of detective that yells at everyone for being for the hot weather.
Right.
But I think if you're a fan of the game, then you will definitely get a lot out of this movie. There's a lot that'll keep you smiling.
Yeah.
When he has the Staminax drink and you get to see all the flares that come on the screen, that's great. That's really great. And the tattoo is the same tattoo.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have liked it had they changed the tattoo. So
yeah. No, I agree with you. I think this movie is definitely a companion piece to the game. If you haven't played the game at least a little bit, then I think you're going to be very lost watching this movie. This is a movie that's definitely made for fans of the game. Although what's interesting is, and because we were watching it last night, my wife was looking up Japanese reviews of it, and she said that the reviews she found were like really terrible. Like there was like people were really hated this movie. Now I didn't ask her. I should have asked her. I should have clarified before we started recording if those reviewers mentioned if they had played the game or not. Because if they had played the game, if they hadn't played the game, then I could totally understand why they've got such a negative view of this movie.
Yeah. Were they were user scores or were they critic reviews?
I'm not sure. She didn't specify. She just said reviews that she was looking at on her phone. So
okay, because I would think if you're a user, then you'd have a little bit of interest in the game. I would think that at least, hopefully, there was a couple of people who did like it. And look, I think at the end when I look back at it, I did like the movie. I just didn't love it.
Yeah. Well, that gets you back to because, like I said, I do think it's an enjoyable movie. I like it as an adaptation of the video game. As a Miike film, I'm very underwhelmed by it.
Right. Yeah.
Like for Miike, this definitely feels like something he was just doing to cash a check, so that he can make another movie that he's more interested in.
I've just had a chat appear on my live chat message. Someone has reminded me that Circle K is also a big convenience store in Japan.
Yes, it is.
So thanks for the message about that one. And that's lost my train of thought. Thanks again, mate.
But yeah, because he made this. Looks like he made this right before he made Sukiyaki Western Django, and so it would make sense why he
just a time filler essentially.
Yeah. Well, because he does a lot of. I mean, because he's one of the most prolific directors in Japan.
He's got over 100 credits, doesn't he?
Yes, he does, and he's only been directing since like the early 90s.
That's phenomenal. That's 3.5 movies a year is an achievement. It's a real achievement.
Yeah, looking at the years that most of these movies come out, like it seems like on average he does like 3, sometimes it's anywhere between 2 and 4 movies a year, it looks like.
Absolutely insane. I wanted to talk about the music as well.
Okay.
It's very high energy, and I think that's part of the good parts about the movie is that when the music kicks in and it's crazy guitar, there seems to be no rhythm to that music. It's just it's like putting a couple of amateurs on instruments and going, hey, just go hell for it, guys.
Right,
and
right.
They start beating at the drum and strumming at the guitar. I get a real sense of craziness for it. And that suits Goro Majima's scenes very much.
Yeah. Well, it suits the Yakuza franchise in general, right? It very, very much fits that, because it's these games they're very over the top. They're although it is weird when the movie kind of tries to slow down and tries to be more serious, because it feels like it's taking a step outside of what it's really supposed to be.
And most of those scenes involve Haruka.
Yeah.
When she finds the puppy dog, looking after it. Yeah, it does slow a little bit down when she's around. Although the scene in the baseball batting cage. Sorry, we don't have baseball in Australia, so I kind of get confused with that one. Where Majima and Kiryu have their first real big fight in the movie.
Yeah.
That's actually, I actually quite liked. Now that I look back at it, I quite like this. In fact, I'm starting to think I actually really enjoyed the film.
Well, one of the things you mentioned there, and it reminded me of what we were talking about earlier, about how you have to be a fan of the game, and that's because it's never explained. When first time we see Kiryu, he's already with Haruka, and he's already with the dog. And we don't, and that's a whole plot point in the video game. Like, we see him stumble across her, we see him find the dog and all that, and you have to go on a quest to find the food for the dog and all that. And we see that all play out. It jumps right into it, just throws us right in front of it, and say, like, here he is with Haruka. They're looking, and he just mentions casually, yeah, we're looking for her mother, but there's no introduction to any of that in the movie.
Yeah. And then I think that's why I got confused, thinking it was based on part 2, because it just jumps right into it.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, oh, hold on, this doesn't feel like part 1 at all. But
I went through a minute when I went through a minute thinking, like, did I miss a scene or something?
Yeah. And that's the good thing about Yakuza, is they're long games.
Yes, they are.
60, 70 hours is not unheard of if you're starting to do some of the side missions.
Oh, yeah.
And like you say, where else can you beat up gangsters and then go find dog food?
Yeah.
It's, you don't get that maybe in the Grand Theft Auto game. You might get it, but you just don't get that in things that aren't Japanese. I've really got to do something about this camera.
But yeah, that's it's very much, in fact, that's how I first heard the game described when I first heard about it. Was it's a Japanese version of Grand Theft Auto, which in some ways I can see why people would make that comparison, but it's not as well. Like, it doesn't have the same wideness.
Violence for violence sake. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it does have that, because it's not as much random violence as you can do in the Grand Theft Auto games, right?
So I can't just beat up a pedestrian.
Right, exactly. You can't go and get in fights with random people. You can't, go run people down with your car, or just, start shooting your gun in the middle of the street. And you can't do that kind of stuff. Which is good, yeah. But there is the over the top violence in just in the way that they fight and everything, and just how every 2 seconds or so you're getting ambushed by some Yakuza. Yeah.
Yeah. I know when I'm playing one of the new games and my wife's sitting there watching it, all she says to me is bump into everyone, because she likes to watch everyone fall over and the looks that they give Kiryu. I mean, it's a very unique part, and so then I'll delicately walk around, but it doesn't suit the character of Kiryu, and he doesn't do it I don't believe he does it in the movie. I don't believe he just
seems pretty
randomly runs into people.
No, he just seems to walk pretty normally. I thought nothing like that. But the games also, they give a really good feel of what it's like to be in these kinds of entertainment neighborhoods in Japan, because every city in Japan has places like this, and like you got the seedier ones like Kabukicho, but you also have just more mainstream ones, just like a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, a lot of late night shops and stuff like that. And just like these places exist all across Japan, we've got one of them here in Kagoshima, which is not a big city, but we still have one of them here. And I'm playing the game, and my wife is sitting next to me, and she's watching me play the game, and she's like, "Oh my God, that looks just like, they got," and she's like noticing all this stuff that's just like, they have like some of the convenience stores, they have a Lawson, I believe, or something that's supposed to be Lawson in the video game, although I think it has a different name, but it's the same like sign design and everything.
Ah, yes, yes. Oh, that's what
And
the Japanese used to do in the 80s, where they would always just change a couple of letters around of a brand.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's see, watching stuff like that, living here in Australia,
Mhm.
we're very different. We just don't have that kind of nightlife
Mhm.
during the week. I remember
Mhm.
my wife coming here from China being bored shitless a Monday, Tuesday night. Like, I want to go shopping, Dan. And I'm like, well, sorry, babe, just nowhere for us to go. Whereas, when you're in Asia, when you're in China, when you're in Japan, it's that 10 o'clock, I want to go to something to eat.
Mhm.
And, and when you look at the world of Yakuza, it's 12 o'clock,
Yeah,
1
yeah.
a.m. I want to go somewhere to eat. I want to go play a game or hit a baseball or play pachinko. God knows why you'd want to play pachinko. You can go to all that stuff. And yeah, that feels like, you can see it in the game. It's set at night, but there's the movie. It's set at night, but there's just people everywhere.
Yes, yeah.
An impromptu fight breaks out, and then there's just a ring of people around watching it. You do get a real sense that in the movie, the world is alive,
Yes,
just
yeah.
like in the game. It feels authentic, and for someone like myself who's not there, it just feels so surreal. These places exist with there's neon lights everywhere. There's people eating at midnight.
Yeah, with the
It's
exception of the fight
unreal.
breaking out, it is very, very true to what the nightlife is.
Are you saying random punks just don't go up to random people?
No, and even the Yakuza, they don't walk around wielding guns.
In the movie, that's what I found really weird about the opening scene, where the Yakuza is trying to buy something from the convenience store, and he starts saying to the kid, "Are you eyeballing me?"
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, in real life, you'd probably be as discreet as possible as a Yakuza person. You'd probably be pretty quiet, especially because
I mean, they're not discreet, but they don't mess with civilians.
And that's what I thought their code was, right? Yeah.
Well, it's not even so much code. It's just because, like, if they mess with civilians, that's like a green light for the cops to come after them.
Right.
So they often
Yeah.
don't. And the movie, which we talked about last season, Minbo, or the Gentle Art of Japanese Extortion. This is a plot point they mentioned in the movie, because the Yakuza are harassing this hotel, and they're like making threats against these hotel owners and everything like that. And the main character, she's a lawyer who fights the Yakuza, and she tells them, they'll threaten you, but they're not actually going to do anything to you, because if they do something to you, then the cops will come down on them. The Yakuza hurt each other. They don't carry out threats on normal people. They just try to scare normal people. But
okay.
I don't, unless the guy's drunk, that's the only reason I'd see why he'd why someone would, a Yakuza guy would be messing with a convenience store clerk. Mostly they wouldn't. They might, like, I've actually run across one or two in my time here in Japan, and they tend to be like, if you see them in a bar or something like that, as long as you're not giving them shit, like, they actually tend to be pretty, they actually tend to be pretty friendly.
That's what I would have thought, actually.
Yeah, just kind of like very boisterous. And I remember I was out with some friends one night, and we had just got finished doing like karaoke and drinking. Then we went to a ramen shop at this is like at 1 a.m. or something.
See, rub it in. Ramen at 1 a.m. Sounds great.
But there's this older guy who's sitting at the counter, and we're sitting at a table. And he sits over there, and he's just like this this very kind of like Yakuza type guy, just sitting there smoking a cigarette. And he sits over there, and then he starts talking to us.
Oh.
And he just comes over and he starts sitting to us, and he's like, so what are you guys doing tonight? And we're like, oh, we just finished doing karaoke. He's like, oh, you like karaoke? He's like, yeah. He's like, all right, well, come with me. And then we go into this other bar, and we walk in, and he opens the door, and the bartender is like, we're in the ramen shop, and he sees these two girls who are from like a hostess bar, and he tells them, he's like, come over here. He brings them over and has them sit with us, and he's like, so you guys want like karaoke? So we go to karaoke, this other bar. He opens the door, and the bartender says, oh, sorry, we're closed. He's like, no, you're open.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so it was a very surreal night.
Oh boy. Is that at that point you're thinking, oh crap?
at that point, I'm
just
just kind of
awesome.
I was like, to be fair, I was pretty drunk at the time because we had just come off a night of drinking to begin with. So I was just kind of, and I didn't know at this point, I had like my Japanese skill was very elementary at this point when I was here in Japan. My friends I was with, they were much more fluent than I was. So they were doing most of the talking. I was just kind of like, if they're okay with it, I'm just going to follow their lead. So,
well, you got out fine.
I got out fine. Yeah,
tell the tale.
It was a fun night. Like we went to the bar. We had, we did some karaoke, and after that, we got a cab and went back to my friend's place, and that was it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So how long do you reckon you were there for karaoke?
Oh, I don't remember. I have, like I said, I think we were probably there at least maybe 2 hours, I'd say.
Shit, that guy must have been dying to go home.
Actually, I can't remember if. Oh, the guy at the bartender. Yeah, I'm sure he probably was. Yeah, poor guy. I felt bad for him.
Oh God. So, what else about this movie?
There's not a whole lot to really talk about with this movie because it is just very much what you see is what you get, right? Like it's not a deep movie, and there's not a whole lot of. I mean, there is the whole thing with the Korean assassin. I don't remember. Was there a Korean assassin in the?
There is Park in the movie.
Okay, so it is.
Yeah,
that is in the game as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I kept thinking that the gun clerk was Korean.
Right. He knows Korean.
He's not. He knows Korean. Yes, because he sells the gun to the Korean.
Right.
And someone's probably going to watch this in the future and tell us that we're both wrong. So pretty happy to take that feedback.
But the other guy who he talks to, the guy from the police station, he's Korean, or he also knows because no, he's not. I don't know if he's Korean, but he is. I'm looking at the cast list now. No, the gun seller is Japanese. Yoshiyoshi Arakawa is his name, and then and Gong Yu plays Park.
For anyone now watching the stream, I've put up an image of the Korean assassin, the bit where he's got the silenced. I actually don't know anything about guns, but I know it's got a silencer on it.
That was a very unique looking gun. Like I don't know a whole lot about guns, but I don't think that was a real gun.
No, and I think it's the bit where he's trying to get the couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, really odd characters. The couple don't. Mm-hmm. Is that a Miike thing, just to add a couple of comic relief characters in a movie to lighten the tone? Nothing
I can think of specifically. I think it was just something they did in this movie, and it feels very tacked on the entire time I'm watching it. I'm just thinking, like, I don't understand why this couple is in here. I thought maybe I was missing something. I thought maybe it was some reference to the game that I just, some side mission that I didn't play in the game or that I'm not remembering, but I don't.
Yeah. I'm starting to think it actually could be as well, now that you've said that.
Okay.
Everything else is really authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I'm not too sure. I don't recall the gun heist at the start either, the bank heist.
Right. That was another thing, too.
Ikinisha and Nakanisha. They're the two idiot characters.
Yeah.
Who are attempting to hold up the bank.
Imanishi and... was one of them, and
Ikunishi, yeah. What's with everyone wearing coats on a hot day?
That's common.
Because they're sitting there complaining about the heat, and especially when the AC breaks down, and I'm sitting there going, take off your freaking coat.
In fact, well, when this movie came out in 2007. I moved to Japan in 2008, and I don't think it was until a few years after that Japan started their the Cool Biz campaign, as they call it. Which is that, and so in a Japanese workplace, you're expected to wear, a suit, right? Suit and tie, jacket and tie, all that. And and what they to try and improve to lower energy consumption, they started the Japanese government started promoting what they called Cool Biz, and this is like guidelines for companies to loosen their dress requirements in the summer months. So you don't have to I don't know if you don't have to wear a tie. I think you still had to wear a tie, but you didn't have to wear a jacket. You could wear a short sleeve collared shirt.
Oh wow.
And but this
Very
movie came
Jehovah's
out.
Witness.
But this movie came out before the Cool Biz thing started.
Okay. It's having a government mandate to do that seems just more like common sense to me. But
yeah.
I live in Australia. We do weird stuff here, so hey.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I'm glad that I work in places where I don't have to dress like that.
Oh, well, I work from home.
Yeah.
This is my office, unfortunately.
Well, right now
with this all day long, but
yeah, right now with the COVID restrictions, I am basically working from home right now.
Yeah, with any luck. So, what do you reckon about the Olympics? I know we're going a little bit off topic, but do you think the Olympics will go ahead this year?
I honestly don't think they will, or if they do, I think there's going to be some really heavy restrictions on who is allowed into the country and under what conditions. So, but I would be very surprised if the Olympics actually happen.
So I'm going to reference the Olympics back to the movie and go, how much involvement do you think the Yakuza are taking in the Olympics?
I'm not sure.
It's a strange question to ask.
Yeah, no. I'm not really sure how much involvement they have in the sports world. I know they have involvement in sumo and that kind of stuff, but something like the Olympics, I don't know how much involvement they have in there. Maybe on the construction side of things, like building some of the facilities, that might be it.
Yep. Yeah, because I could imagine where there's an opportunity to make money, the Yakuza are there, and that's what I've always liked about Kiryu. He doesn't seem to be this money hungry person.
No.
He's never been in any of the games, and especially if you've played part 3, where he's always giving the money back to the orphanage or trying to make sure at least the orphanage is taken care of, and that's part of his character that comes across really well in the movie as well.
That's something that ties into a lot of these, because the Yakuza have tried to have their own PR spin. Like they have financed a lot of like direct-to-video Yakuza films.
Oh.
And yeah, they even had at one point like different Yakuza groups. They had like magazines dedicated to them and stuff like that. And I'm dead serious here. This is not even a joke.
It sounds so surreal. I'm trying to imagine the mafia doing that.
Yeah. No, I mean, but like they have open offices. Like they have offices with their clan name right stamped right across the top. It's they operate. They do a lot of operating out in public in that way. Obviously, they do a lot of stuff under the They have front companies and all that, but there's no secret as to who's running these front companies, right?
That's the strangest bit of transparency I've ever heard about.
It is. It's very strange. But one of the things that they did is a lot of these movies, these movies that the Yakuza have helped finance, is they promote a myth of the Yakuza that's very much in line with what Kiryu represents. So like a lot of these movies, these games, they're very much like kind of an homage to those types of movies.
Okay, so you've got the noble,
right. The whole idea of like the Yakuza being a modern day version of the samurai. That's very much like the image the Yakuza tries to promote.
Cool.
Even so much because like they had I don't know if you remember this, but when they had the earthquake I think it was the Kobe earthquake in the 90s. The Yakuza actually managed to marshal aid and support faster than the government did.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So sorry for being cynical, but what did they want in return?
At that point, I don't think they got anything out of that in return other than just positive relations, because there was a lot of news coverage about like, look at how helpful the Yakuza are.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a good PR spin. You're right.
Because it's only like people, like the whole thing in the public perception of the Yakuza for a long time has just been kind of, if there's going to be crime in Japan, we'd rather it be organized crime than unorganized. That was kind of a popular perception going on for decades. And it's only like in the past, 10 to 15 years or maybe 15 to 20 years that it's really started to change. And there's been a lot more action taken against the Yakuza. But for a long time, they did enjoy a very positive, as positive a public reputation as a criminal organizations can get. But yeah.
Well, they don't usually get many. I'm trying to think the triads, the mafia. What's that one in MS-13? They don't exactly get positive news spins. So
yeah,
it's unusual to hear that about
well, I mean,
criminal organization.
The mafia, I think, to some extent, because there was like the whole, you know, mob movie craze and stuff like that in the going like the 70s, and then it wasn't really until the late 70s, early 80s that the government really started to crack down on mafia activities. So for a long time, the mafia did operate pretty much, especially in New York. There's a great documentary series called Fear City. It's all about the taking down the mafia in New York, and like they operated with impunity. Like they just did not care about anything. They would kill people right in the middle of the street and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's got to be a bit scary.
Mm-hmm.
At least I know that's not going to happen in Yakuza.
You won't see that happen. Yeah, none of that will happen. A lot of times they don't. The Yakuza keep most of the violent actions. They don't make it as. You don't see it happening like in the middle of the streets like you did. But back in New York, and like you go back to the 70s, that was happening in the middle of the streets.
Yeah, I suppose I probably can't talk certain parts of Australia. We're a bit wild back 20 years ago. Here where I live, just down the road, there was a lot of those crazy guys doing a lot of stuff. They made a very big documentary in Australia, TV show in Australia about it, and everyone went nuts. And I remember working in another city and everyone saying to me, have you watched this this TV show about the Melbourne gangsters? And I said to them, I don't need to watch a documentary. I lived through the whole thing. I remember every story, every shooting, every incident. I remember it. For anyone who's thinking about what it is, it was the Underbelly. If you're in Australia, the Underbelly TV show.
Oh, okay.
When that stuff happened, or it's on the news here, it was hard to avoid it. What was Sega's involvement in this game, in this movie? It doesn't seem that.
I don't think they had really.
Sega.
Yeah, I don't think they had really. I don't know. I can't find any information about it. And you know, when it comes to a lot of Japanese movies, unless it's something that's gotten very popular in the West, like The Ring, there's not a whole lot of trivia or information like that. So like, I don't even have like I can see what its worldwide gross was. It made $5.2 million, but I don't see any information about what the budget was. It does. Sega is listed as one of the production companies, but I don't know if they really had any sort of big involvement in that. That could just be their involvement in licensing out the property for the movie.
Which, yeah, and like I said, I'm trying to find it here. There's that very one brief scene of the Sega logo. Sorry, in Australia, we say Sega. There it is. And I get very confused when people say Sega. So sorry about that. There it is. Again, you can't see it, but it's about 13 minutes and 50 seconds into the film. And Majima is holding the baseball bat. They're in the batting cage. And there's those coin cups that you get from the arcade that filled up with your tokens. Yeah, it's a couple of those on top of the machine with the Sega logo on them. I remember they were the only bits I saw of Sega and being disappointed, thinking, oh, that means Kiryu's not going to go to the arcade and play Outrun. Yeah, but it was a 90-minute film.
Yeah,
no?
yeah.
It's a 2 hour film.
2 hours, yeah.
Is that really only so much you can put in 2 hours, Dan?
But I mean, I do think though the movie, I think it did get a little bit too hung up on let's recreate the world of the game, and not as much, and they didn't seem to pay as much attention to let's remember what the story of the game was. Yeah, and certainly not let's make sure that a newbie can enjoy this as well as someone who knows the series. Well, we were talking before that, and I'm not sure how that at least the Ryuga Gotoku series, there is like a Japanese TV series. I don't know if it's an exact translation of the game or what. If anyone's watching the stream, and if you know anything about the TV show, I tried to find some information about it, but I couldn't really find a whole lot about it.
Yeah, anyone watching the stream now, you're probably going to see my IMDb page listing. But yeah, one's called, I'm going to pronounce this really badly, Kurohyo Ryuga Gotiko Shinsho, which you're probably sitting there going, no idea. It's from 2010, and it broadcast on something called MBS and TBS, if that makes any difference to you.
Those are there's like I'm seeing two listings here on TMDB. There's Like a Dragon, Poem of Soul, and there's Kurohyo Ryuga Gotoku Shinso. So this is the one you were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, but that doesn't have Kiryu in it. Tatsuya is in it.
Okay.
So
and the Like a Dragon, Poem of Soul, that's dated as 2016. The other one is dated as 2010.
2010, right? Yeah, that's the one I was looking at, I think. So there has been a couple of attempts at some follow-ups.
Yeah, this one, it looks like they only have the actors listed. They don't say what their names are, but just looking at the photo here, it looks like there is a guy dressed as Kiryu. So I'm not sure how accurate it is to the game. I'm not sure if it, does the whole story of the game or what, but that would really be, I think that is probably the best way to really kind of do this story is in like not like a 22 episode. But like something like, you look at something like the streaming services where they have like, 9 episode seasons or something like that. I think that would be a way to really kind of delve into this series.
I think it probably runs into a bit of trouble when you get to parts 4 and 5, where you branch out into using multiple characters.
Yeah. Then that would. Well, I mean, you could still do that. You just make it more of an ensemble cast. But I think by the time, I think you might have to relaunch the series or something when you get to that point, because at that point, I think people would be really tied into the idea of Kiryu being the main character.
And I think that's what's throwing me out about part 7 that's about to be released in Australia, I think, in the next couple of weeks, is that there is no Kiryu.
Oh, really?
Completely new.
Oh, okay.
New series. And I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how to feel about a Yakuza game with no Kiryu. So, and they're changing the action from action-based to turn-based as well, which is going to be a real big departure in the
that's a weird, because at a time when so many games are switching from turn-based to more active, that's a really odd thing to do.
But the reviews I've read seem to say that it's a great switch. So it's worth it. There's also another Yakuza game. I'm going to get the name wrong, but I think it's called Ishin, which is supposed to be set in samurai times. And it never got released. I don't believe it got released outside of Japan.
I'm looking it up now. Oh, so it is part of the same series.
It is. So Kiryu is in it. He's just playing a samurai, is he?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, set in the Bakumatsu period. Well, it's a guy who looks like Kiryu. He's not really Kiryu, but yeah.
Okay. I'm sure they got a really cool story explaining it. But yeah, that's another one I haven't played yet.
But they use a historical character, Sakamoto Ryoma. He was an actual historical person.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not seeing a whole lot of information about the game much beyond that. They've made a few of them though, it looks like.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Because we're really far behind here. They just never released them internationally.
I guess not. Yeah, maybe they felt that it wouldn't. Maybe they felt that it wasn't marketable enough. I don't know. Maybe they'll go back and reconsider that after Ghost of Tsushima has become very popular.
Oh, brilliant game!
Yes, I'm in the middle of playing that. I'm in the middle of playing that right now.
Love it. Yeah, I think mate and I decided to platinum the game, so we played it that much. I think we got 60 hours each.
Oh wow, nice.
So it's well worth it. Fantastic game.
Yes.
Play it. Hopefully you're playing it in Japanese and
yes,
I
English. Am. Yeah.
Oh, good. So I know the lips are synchronized to English, not Japanese. So you get this kind of weird dubbing effect in the cutscenes. But hey, it's a samurai game. You got to play it in the proper language.
Yeah, I played also when they had the Way of the Samurai game. I played that all in Japanese, and the Yakuza games I played all those in Japanese as well, with the subtitles. But yeah, it's and I one last thing about that. I love the the Kurosawa mode where you can play in black and white.
I haven't tried that.
I don't do it all the time, but it is cool, like for certain sequences and every now, because you could just change it really easily by just pausing the game. So it's not like you have to change a whole different mode.
Oh, I didn't. I'll be honest, never explored that section. I do remember seeing it there, but never gave it a shot. Don't know why.
Yeah, it's a cool little feature. It's a nice little touch they added to it. But anyway, so back to the movie. One of the things I thought about this is, and like I said, this is why I think that the movie is entertaining enough, and I think that when it comes to the action, I think it also does, because one of the things I noticed is a lot of Japanese movies, you don't have like these big action set pieces that much, just because they tend to be very expensive. Miike tends to be the exception, right? Like he does action very well. He did Blade of the Immortal. He did a great job in that. 13 Assassins, right? Amazing action sequences in that movie, and very big budget action sequences too, right? The kind of stuff that you would see in like an American movie where they have much larger budgets. And same thing in here. Like, even though this obviously doesn't have the budget of an American movie, he still does a really good job filming those action sequences, like the shootout in the club and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm just as you're talking, I'm just showing everyone who's watching the stream some of the footage that you're talking about, and you know, there's the cramped street fight where he's playing with the baseball bat and he hits the guy with the baseball. I mean, you're right, it does look good, and there's this nice little smoky effect that's going on that gives it that kind of atmosphere. And like we've said before, the streets just feel alive as well. There's a big difference. Like, you could have had a very big budget action sequence, but adding 20 or 30 extras in the background as a crowd just adds so much more atmosphere to it. And you know, he probably could have got away with just the extras and a couple of choreographed moves, but you're right, he's actually gone a little bit further out. He's not relied too much on CGI, which is great. There are obvious bits of CGI in the movie, but I think for the action scenes, they tend to mostly be devoid of any CGI. And 2007 would certainly say, you know.
Yeah, especially when you're talking 2007, you're talking about Japanese movies with the lower budgets. It would look a lot more obvious if it was CGI. Yeah,
well, stuff like what's it called? Corpse Prison 1 and 2. The CGI just looks really fake. You can tell, and even Tak Sakaguchi's latest in Crazy Samurai Musashi, the CGI added over the top for the blood and effects just. Yeah, it goes out of place. Yeah,
there's a low budget movie I talked about in a past episode called Bloody Chainsaw Girl. That also had that also had some very obvious CGI in it.
Yeah, it's still a great film though.
It's a very you know what, I was actually, and you can go back and listen to the episode I did. I think it was in season 3 maybe.
Yeah.
No, I think it was season 2 is when I covered that movie. So yeah, season 2.
It was one of the things I wanted to cover on my channel was those.
Yeah, the 6th episode of season 2, and it was a fun movie, but it wasn't as crazy as I expected it to be. Right, when I think like something like The Machine Girl. Right. Yeah. It doesn't reach like those heights. It kind of feels like it feels almost like it's holding back in some ways, which is very odd for a movie like that to hold back.
And that could be budget related. You're right.
Could be,
it could just simply be budget related. It's, and not everything is Yakuza weapon style of budgets where, you know, Tak can go nuts. Seemingly with a small budget too. And like you said, you couldn't find the budget for Yakuza. And I felt that at times it did feel a little B grade. I'll be honest. It didn't have that quite atmosphere of a cinematic movie that you know, go to the cinema and pay $20 to watch.
Right.
The actors, they did throw me out. I think Haruka, another one. she didn't look like what I pictured her from the game. She has a particular look.
Yeah, she does look. She does. There's a different look, but I think mostly I was impressed with her. I thought they did a pretty decent job with her.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife has commented too, because she's seen me when I'm playing the game, and when we were watching the movie, she's like, "Oh wow, they look just like in the game."
Oh really? So okay, yeah. So well, that's me then. Oh, sorry.
No, I mean there is obviously different appearances, and she's more. I think she's more talking about the costuming than anything else.
That does seem. Although there does seem to be a bit. It's a bit uncomfortable with the costume that she does wear in the movie. It does seem to be rather too short.
I was thinking of that I was thinking of that a few times. Yeah.
And I'm not going to show anyone, so don't think you're going to be seeing it. You don't need to see that stuff, or go watch the movie if you want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you probably could have just given her a little bit more fabric on her skirt.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have hurt.
But actually, that's even for young, those skirt lengths are not uncommon here. So.
Well, okay, and again, we should want authenticity. So
yeah.
I suppose I don't want to be that typical Westerner that comes in and goes, "No, you can't do that," because that feels like censorship to me. People, if that's what happens in Japan, then I'm not one to question it. If I'm getting an authentic experience, that's great. Clearly, some of the moves they do are not authentic, but there is a grounding of fantasy in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Which we have to admire, and I do. Goro's crazy.
Yes,
he is really crazy. But had he had that voice, had he had that high pitched Goro voice, I think I'd have given the movie an 8.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I can't. Yeah. I just can't without it. And maybe I wanted, and like I think I've said it to you before, I wanted Kiryu to be a bit more gruff, a bit more. Yeah.
That's fair enough. Well, when you're coming, and I know this being a fan of comic books when it comes to watching superhero movies, that there are some things that when I see it happen, and if it's not the way I think it's supposed to be, then I do feel let down, even if it's otherwise mostly good. So I can understand where you're coming from with that.
It wouldn't have been an issue if I think Yakuza wasn't like a movie in itself or a mini TV series.
Yeah,
I mean, you get so many cutscenes, you get so many bits of dialogue. You fall in love with the characters, you really do. That's the charm of the game.
Yeah.
So, once you've played 7 games of the Yakuza series, 8 if you count that silly Dead Souls one. You follow Haruka from when she's young to when she's an idol in part 5, and then part 6. I'm not going to spoil for anyone, but it's a really sad ending. Have you played part 6?
No, I haven't played it yet.
Sad ending. But you follow these characters you follow the friendship of Kiryu and Goro. When they started as those kind of friend rivals in Zero, to how Goro's just looking for a fight.
Right.
And Kiryu is the only one who can fight him because he's the only one who's strong enough to give him a challenge.
Yeah.
And we get two fights in the movie, which are great. And then I think Goro helps them at the end.
Yeah. And I thought they did a good job of really kind of showcasing that relationship too. I thought that translated fairly well. I mean,
yes.
I think maybe I would have liked to see a little bit more of it, but I think generally they do a good job of giving you the sense.
Yeah, and if you've played the game and you like Goro as a character, other than the voice, you'll love him in the movie.
Yeah.
He's got the snake skin jacket on. He's got his boots. He's got his baseball bat. He's got his facial scars and his facial hair. It's
the
all
eye patch and all that. Yeah.
The eye patch. Sorry. Yeah, it feels very authentic and as we've said before, and you've got Kiryu's gray jacket, gray suit. I think they even, I might be remembering incorrectly, but I'm pretty sure they even emulate one of his famous smoking poses in the movie. I'd have to go double check it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
On the side.
Maybe. I wasn't paying, I'm not as familiar with the game, so I'm not sure if I noticed that. But it's very possible. I mean, that's the kind of thing, like Miike will do a lot of that kind of stuff. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of porn for the nerds.
Yeah,
with that one.
Definitely, yeah.
This is the shot I'm referring to if anyone's if anyone's watching the stream, you've got it's just Kiryu from, say, the chest up, and he's kind of turned to face the camera, and the whole background is bokeh'd out. So it's just a great blur of neon lights, and it's such a game shot. You know, the first time you see Kiryu in the game, that's there. To be honest, I was a bit worried before we started this, because I was sitting there thinking, I don't know how much positive stuff I could talk about this film. And especially since when we emailed, we were talking about possibly talking about a horror film.
Right.
And I'm kind of glad we did this, because you've given me another sense of appreciation for this film.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Well, I'm glad. And again, it's not a movie that, and again, as I said, it's a movie that does, I like it on some levels, but it is disappointing in others. And especially the ending is just very much like they kind of remembered at the last minute. Oh, right. We have a story that we're supposed to be telling here. But a lot of and as a Miike film, I think it's definitely one of his weaker ones. If I'm going to watch a Miike film, this is not the one I'm going to pick.
That's true. That is true.
It's entertaining enough, and it gave me, you know what, the thing I think that it really did well, it made me want to go and play the game. And I think that's what a good movie adaptation of a video game should do. It should, if you played the game, it should make you want to play it again. If you haven't played the game, it should make you want to seek it out. And maybe not so much if you hadn't played the game, because like we said, it's very much closed off to people who aren't familiar with this world. But I think
it might help you fill in the gaps, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But it does. But if you're someone who is, especially if you're someone who's familiar with the game, I think it does make you nostalgic for it and make you want to kind of go back to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I told you that when I looked at this movie, I was looking at other game movies, and certainly when it comes to game to movie adaptations, the faithfulness in the setting is probably, you probably couldn't ask for more. Like when you take something like Resident Evil, what part of any of those Resident Evil movies remind you of any of the games? Oh
yeah, absolutely. And even though those movies might be fun, there's nothing in those movies that make you think like, oh, I want to go play the game now, because they're just so completely divorced from that world. Same thing with a lot of other, like Mortal Kombat is another one where it's a fun adaptation, but it's probably like as best as most American adaptations of video games get. But it doesn't really give you the feel, because it's a PG-13 movie, right? It doesn't give you the feel of, like, when you played Mortal Kombat back when I was in elementary school, we played it because it was bloody as hell. Yeah.
I think probably the only other game to movie adaptation I can think of, and people are going to hate me for saying this, it's the second Silent Hill, because it's based on the third game. Okay. I know it's based loosely on the first game, a third game, but it's still authentic enough that you get a lot of the settings of the third game in that second movie. And so, but you're right. I can watch a Silent Hill movie and not want to boot up the game, but I'm looking at the footage on the other screen here of Yakuza, and all I'm sitting there is thinking, I haven't finished part 5 yet. Should I jump back into it and play it? Or should I just wait for part 7 that's coming in a month? I mean, that's a good feeling. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
That is a great feeling for this movie, and the feeling that you get for it. So there you go, filmmakers, if you're listening, more stuff like this.
Yes. I mean, if you want to make it, you want to make it feel like you want people to think that, all right, I'm going to go back and I want to go back and play the game now. That's something I think any sort of good adaptation should make you nostalgic or make you want to re-experience the original. I feel like that with, we were talking before that I'm a big Marvel fan, and one of the things that the Marvel movies make me want to do is, after I watch an Avengers movie, I want to go back and reread some of those comics.
Nice.
And I think they do a really good job with that. And this game does that. Like, I'm thinking now, like, I haven't finished playing Kiwami yet. I think I should go fire it up now.
Oh, you definitely should finish it off. Yeah. Don't waste any time, because that is a good one.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I think we have. Is there anything else you wanted to say about this movie?
Nah, I think we're going around in circles now.
Yeah.
And, I don't mind it. I reckon you probably want to head off, maybe have some dinner.
Yeah, we're getting to that time. So.
Yeah. So this has been a great chat. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you for helping me with my first live stream.
Oh, I'm more than happy to. Thanks for coming on the show. Glad to have you. Before I get through and go through my my last minute outro stuff, anything you want to promote yourself? Anything? Where should people find you?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. Come on. I'm on YouTube at The Arty Dance. That's ARTYDANS. The name comes from me being a Dance Dance Revolution fan 20 years ago. Remember that game?
Yeah.
And someone gave me
I could never get anywhere on that game.
Well, someone gave me a cool nickname for it, so it's kind of stuck. So it's The Arty Dance. It's a YouTube channel. It should be pretty easy to find. This year we're going to be looking every Sunday night. We're going to be looking at a different kind of horror film. I think I've told you I'm going to be looking at some of the best Asian horrors, but I've decided I also want to look at some of the worst because I have more fun talking about the worst ones. So the first one I'm going to be talking about will be Viral, the Thai movie from 2018, which is one of the biggest loads of crap you'll ever see. But the first positive one will be about Gonjam Haunted Asylum, which is a real surprising horror film. I'm going to continue my series of Chinese horror. So if anyone's interested in Chinese horror movies and what makes them tick and what makes them exist, I love to explore them. They're possibly some of the stupidest horror movies you'll ever watch, and none of them are actually horror films. And then I'm also going to look at horror movies that probably aren't fabulous, but aren't crap. So again, the first one I'll look at is a Filipino movie called Hell Come Home, which has a really awesome name. That has also a really awesome middle, but not so good intro and exit. So yeah, that's an
interesting way to do it, because most movies they start out really good and maybe they kind of peter off, or they're maybe slow to start, but then they really get you in the end. Not a whole lot you think of that they don't land the beginning, they don't land the ending, but they land the middle.
Yeah, this one lands the middle, lands it really well.
That's interesting.
But disappoints you with the rest of it. So it's not bad enough for a worst series. So I thought, give it its own series. And again, throughout the year, I'll cover a lot of different reviews of lots of different Asian movies. Like I said, currently Chinese New Year, so we'll be going through Chinese New Year movies. But as more movies come out, more Korean and Japanese stuff, as cinemas reopen, we'll be looking at those as well, and the occasional special feature. So yeah, that's this year on Arty Dans. And if you want to go to Asian Film Fans, always the latest trailers are on there, translated into English, mostly Chinese, because I've only got a Chinese translator, and because the Japanese studios hate anyone other than them posting their trailers online, so it's difficult to put Japanese stuff on there. But if you're interested in some Chinese product, including Hong Kong, we've got plenty of it on Asian Film Fans. So thank you. And it'd be nice, I might pop some links actually in the video description for your podcast as well.
Sounds good,
if you don't mind. So maybe you can just email me a couple of good links and I'll throw them in.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. I'll make sure to do that.
Thank you, Perry.
Thank you. It was great having you on. For everyone else, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. If you're new to the show, hope you like what you see. And we'll be back. We're just starting a new season now. We'll be back next week, focusing on Hanabi will be the movie for next week. So
is that the fireworks?
Yes.
Oh my God, they made me study that in university, telling me it was the best movie ever. And I shut up, Dan. Don't say anything. But japanonfilm.com is if you want to see more of Perry's stuff. Go there, japanonfilm.com.
Yes, yeah. So japanonfilm.com, join it, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Japan on Film on both of those. Japanonfilm.com if you also are interested in coming on the show. Dan did that himself. He, sent me an email about like a week or so ago, and we were able to quickly schedule something and get him to come on. So I got a list of movies there that I'm interested in covering. So just go ahead, have a look, see what's on there. And like I said, we record these kind of a bunch in advance, and then they'll come out a few months later. But that does it for now. You're watching this now probably in late March, April. Hopefully things have calmed down a little bit as far as COVID and everything goes.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, but if not, stay safe, wear a mask, and we'll talk to you next time.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
For watching this episode of Japan on Film. For more of our videos, just hit the subscribe button.